How many people have gone to some form of corporate training? I hate corporate training. I'm a corporate trainer. So how did this tragic job placement come to be? This is my path. I guarantee you, you will not be able to follow my pathway. But I encourage you, if that's your goal, to seek out that pathway and continue to take steps to find what you want and what your job is. I started as a playwright at the University of Minnesota. I was a theater arts major. It's not that I didn't want to be on stage. I wasn't shy, but I was busy. I was a cheerleader for the University of Minnesota, so I was tumbling on the football field and the basketball court. I didn't have time for lengthy rehearsals and things like that. Like many people my age, I had Wile E. Coyote as my male role model, so we often did very stupid things. And I was noticed by a choreographer who was putting together a sword fight for an opera. I said, sure, I'll be a part of that. And I found myself out in New York working with the Metropolitan Opera Company and a couple of other theaters on Broadway. When I got done with that, I came home and I was in television working at KSTP, minding my own business. And they were shooting a film in the Twin Cities. Does anyone remember Drop Dead Fred? I got to be Fred's stunt double. Wrong place, wrong time, said yes. When I wasn't getting hit by fire trucks or falling down steps, I was working in advertising and marketing using my playwriting to write scripts for Boone & Erickson, write copy for Land O'Lakes, do news releases and things like that. And that led to me getting a job as a spokesperson for Gillette Children's Specialty Healthcare. There I was writing for the C-suite people, doing speeches for them, doing news releases, doing media prep training for the families, the kids, the doctors, the staff. I'll say this though, it's really important if you're going to be the spokesperson for a company or a product, it's vital that you understand what that topic is. Day one, I was asked to pitch a story about people that have a flat spot on their head, low amniotic fluid, too many times in a car seat or a swing. Having worked in TV, I knew what the reporters wanted. They want to call it mush melon, flat forehead, squash skull. But we all know what it's really called. Go ahead and say it with me. Non-synesthetic deformational plagiocephaly. Excellent. As a theater arts major with no medical training, I realized I had a lot to learn. For the next almost decade, I worked with the doctors and I worked with the kids and the families, teaching them to deal with the media, teaching them to speak in sound bites, to stick to their key messages. I then went on to do that for Health Fitness. I went to do it for US Bank. And I realized there's a lot of people that have no idea how to talk to the media. I should probably start my own company and train people on how to do that. Don't do that. Bad idea. I struggled for the next several years trying to find that client, going into their business, finding out where their weaknesses were, where their learning gaps were, putting together a class, going in and training the class on time management, effective customer service, leadership, embracing change. But it didn't matter. I could never quite find that next client, and I could never quite get paid for the last client because my contracts weren't exactly legally binding. And I was giving a speech about this, lamenting my efforts at a Toastmasters meeting. And one of the Toastmasters says, well, why don't you work for a company that does all the booking and does all of the billing? And you just show up and be the trainer. Has anyone heard of Fred Pryor seminars? So I was a Fred Pryor seminar trainer. I went down to Kansas City and I got trained and certified on time management. That was my topic. I'm terrible at time management. I don't know what they were thinking. I started teaching time management. The way that it works with Fred Pryor is you get flown in on Sunday, you go to the hotel, you get all of your slides ready, and then you go down Monday morning and you do your presentation. Then you pack everything up, drive 2 to 4 hours to the next city, and give the exact same presentation again. Go up and get your slides ready, change them for the new city, and then present. This travel, prep, talk went on for the whole week. On Saturday morning, I got back to the airport, came back to the Twin Cities, did my laundry, went back to the airport on Sunday, and flew out for the next topic in the next set of cities. One thing to know about me, I don't do anything in moderation. So in my effort to be malleable and valuable and have some job security, I wanted to learn as many different topics as I could. So I, at one point, was certified to teach 35 different topics for Fred Pryor seminars. And I thought this was going to be great. Now, little side note, because I was teaching all these Fred Pryor seminars, I would go in and I taught 12 different classes on aspects of leadership. And I found that all the leaders and CEOs thought that all the other leaders and CEOs in the room knew all the answers, and they were the only ones that didn't. It was classic imposter syndrome. So when I was doing an elective for a Toastmasters project, I was supposed to do a podcast episode. I thought, I will do a podcast called Collecting Confidence, which is what we do as Toastmasters as we go down our pathway journey. We get a little better. Every speech we get behind us, we get a little better. And these CEOs, I kept telling them, we're all making it up as we go along. What I want you to do is to make a plan every day to get a little smarter, a little better, and a little more confident. That was their goal. And again, nothing in moderation. I just recorded my 85th episode of the Collecting Confidence podcast. So maybe someday I'll be a keynote speaker talking on my confidence speech, but I'm not there yet. So when, getting back to the Fred Pryor stuff, when I was doing that, every day we'd do 5 days in a row, boom, boom, boom. And every day, the first day, I was very nervous about whether or not I was going to have the timing right, whether or not I was going to be able to do the transitions, whether I was going to remember stuff, whether I was going to be able to find the next city. But by Friday, I was like Donny Osmond doing a Vegas show. Hey, here for time management. Good, you're just in time. It was really nice. It was a great lesson in the power of practice and repetition. And it really helps out when I do Toastmasters too. Very important to know. As I was doing these classes and everything was working really well, I was living it up. I was racking up the frequent flyer miles, and then COVID hit. Stop, everything stopped. Don't go to the hotel, don't go to the airport. Even Toastmasters ground to a halt. And I had my backpack over my shoulder, and I was heading out the door to go to Boston. And they called and said, we canceled your flight. I was like, okay, any chance you can teach remotely? Sure. Using Teams? Yes. Tomorrow morning? Yes. That's one thing they teach in theater is always say yes. So I quickly ran down to my computer, downloaded Teams because I didn't know how to use it yet, figured out how to use it, and then transferred the format from in-person to remote and taught the next morning. And that's how they taught for several years, exclusively remote. But people didn't need as much training anymore because people weren't working, people weren't meeting, they weren't gathering. So I needed to find someone that was willing to pay me full-time. And I found Optum Health. And there they needed a trainer to teach people all over the US, the Philippines, and India how to register claims, look over claims, find errors in claims, find ways to get people enrolled into the insurance. And I kept doing that for 4 years. Now, the information is intensive. It's kind of like teaching people to do their taxes, but it gets easier and easier as you go along. The more you do it, the easier it is. The classes are from 8 in the morning until 4:30 in the evening, all week long. And the classes are actually 4 to 10 weeks in length. A lot of time on Zoom, a lot of time talking. Now, there's some really good things about working from home and working remotely and being a spokesperson in that way. One is the parking is awesome. Pajama day is every day. The downside is people have their cameras off. People have their microphones muted. So you're not getting any feedback. And in a one-on-one conversation, 80% of the information that we get is that nonverbal communication. And you don't get any of that. Nonverbal communication is so important. You can't not communicate, which is a double negative, which is a no-no, which is also a double negative. But you don't get any of that when you're teaching. So it's very important to understand that if you're going to be teaching remotely, if you're going to be doing stuff remotely, you are not going to get that feedback. I have loved what I'm doing. I hope that I can continue to do it. Like my Toastmasters experience, I've had a blast doing this so far, and I have no idea what the future holds in store for me. I hope that if that's your goal, that you keep taking that next step that you need to make it work for you. Thank you very much.